everyone. I'm Toon Otten. I'm a lecturer and researcher at Inholland University Rotterdam. I'm here with Hans Buitendijk, my team leader. We will have a conversation soon, but first I'm going to have a conversation with Botond Varga. He's leading a AI startup, which we're working with, and we're doing some experiments regarding AI and decision-making, which we're running with our students. And we're going to have a little chat about the whole concept and what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Botond. Thank you very much for being here.
Sure, it's exciting to be here.
Could you introduce yourself? And
Yeah, sure. So, to the audience, my name is Botond Varga. I'm the CEO and founder of Vergil AI, leading the tech there as well right now. It's a small, lean team. But, we're working on essentially revolutionizing the way we learn and the way we teach using artificial intelligence. You're using games, analytics, essentially changing the landscape. But I think, we can delve deeper into that later.
so I saw that our students were using AI in a very simplistic way.
Mm.
So basically what they were doing was they were giving some tasks by their teachers.
Yeah.
They would give it to AI
Yeah.
and then see what AI came up with. That's not a good. That's not the right way to use AI, right?
No. I mean, I think what's a very similar situation is when pocket calculators started coming out in like the 1980s.
Exactly.
And you had a bunch of newspaper articles, the same way you have now, of people going crazy about how calculators are going to make this new generation of kids dumb. They're not going to know mathematics. And that was a huge fear that the calculators are going to ruin education. Same way, professors in universities everywhere are worried about AI. And I guess in a similar sense, if you're a student and you just have the calculator do all of your job for you, well then, you're not going to learn the logic of it, right? But if you're using a graphing calculator to visualize the way different types of graphs can go, simply use it as a form of exploration, use it to expedite your thought. If you've already mastered something, right? That same thing of if you delegate to it, if you just allow it to be sort of something that replaces your own thinking, sure, it's not going to help, right?
Yes.
But if you can actually use it the right way, then it can absolutely, it's a game changer in productivity.
It's very interesting that you're comparing it now with calculators.
Yeah.
But obviously, we're talking about large language models.
Yeah.
What I find very fascinating about your project is that basically what we are doing is we're using the same source of data, of knowledge, if you can say this, that ChatGPT has, but then you're modeling it, molding it in a certain way in order to achieve performance augmentation.
Sure.
How do you do this?
Yeah, well, look, I think it's two separate things. So mostly, I mean, the first thing is, this is super interesting, but two large language models, even if they're the same, like two ChatGPTs put together is smarter than one ChatGPT, which is strange because, deep down, it's the same set of parameters with the same data that it's been fed. It's like having two identical versions of you trying to solve a problem. You're not smarter just because there's two of you, and yet you are. And why? This is called something like resistance theory, right?
Yeah.
So, do this experiment. Try to move your hand as slowly and calmly across your face, or across your chest as possible. You'll get semi-good results. Now try to put your other palm against it and put pressure on both sides. Now you're going to be moving it much smoother.
Yeah.
Resistance actually helps to iron out the results. So putting multiple large language models together, giving them each specializations, giving them each a task, making them fight against each other or try to reach a consensus, like a team working together, actually yields much smarter, much more sophisticated results. This is shown in the scientific literature everywhere. So that's number one. Number two is gamification, right? So that's, I think, probably the biggest game changer that's going to come around to education. Now, to go on a bit of a historical tangent, education is supposed to be fun. So, naturally, people, both children and adults, learn through games, learn through play. In fact, they're fundamentally the same phenomena. If you look at a flow diagram, right? Invented by the Hungarian psychologist Csikszentmihalyi. Now, in one axis, you place how challenging the problem is. And on the other axis, you place your competency level. Well, if your competency is high and it's not challenging, you get bored in this area. If it's very challenging and your competency is low, then you get frustrated. But in that middle path, you've got that beautiful, perfect line of equilibrium, which is when you're in a state of flow. That's when you don't notice you're learning, or that's when you don't notice that you're playing, right? Play is fun when it's on the edge, right? If you're wrestling with someone as a child, you're not going to have fun if it's too safe. Yes. You're not going to have fun if you're beating the other guy, right? Yeah. You're going to have fun if it's just on the edge of danger. That's when everything in life is fun. It's when, in romance, you have to be just on that line of danger. In learning, it's the same phenomena. And the flow diagram for when play is fun and when you're learning is the same thing. And so the only reason that we're teaching the way we're teaching now is because the current education was invented 200 years ago by the Prussians to train obedient cadets and officers, right? That's the education system we're using now, which is just no longer acceptable. And so what we're doing is we're using large language models to create immersive game-like environments in which the student can try to find this. We dynamically change the game to try to get the student into a game of flow so that whenever they're learning, whatever they're learning, they can be having fun.
That sounds very powerful. How can we as a university help you to attain this state of flow?
Well, it's very important that universities realize that education is changing, and you can't, if you're just standing around in a moving world, then you're going to get left behind. And so universities such as yours in Holland was, we've been collaborating on this for 6 months, was one of the first universities to realize that this is not a danger that has to be limited. This is an opportunity for us to exploit.
Exactly.
And so I think, the projects that we've done, the pilot projects with the Shark Tank game, with the language learning, I think we'll talk about them more later on. I mean, these opportunities and the research we're going to be doing are critical to really understand how this works and how to make the best of it.
So we're also still exploring, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the language learning app. I've seen that it's very important for our students to have an assistant available 24/7. How do you think, or how can you model such an assistant in the sense that it's like a trustworthy, like so-called buddy? We call it language buddy, and it's going to be an AI language buddy. How do you do this?
So at Vergil, we've developed our own proprietary knowledge graph, which allows us to represent basically any knowledge and a student's progression in learning it. For us, what learning is we take the syllabus from the student, in this case, learning a language, we represent it in our own knowledge graph, and as the student is learning, they're navigating that graph. And because we've got this very explicit sense of what they're learning, what's the next step, maybe they ask a question about their material, we know exactly where that is in the knowledge graph. So we are augmenting the usage of large language models so that they're not just large language models, which can hallucinate, have a lot of erroneous data, false data. They can be very confident and very stupid, which is a dangerous combination. And so what we do is whenever a question is asked, we first look in the knowledge graph of which section we're dealing with. Then we use external sources like the Google Knowledge Graph, like Wolfram Alpha, and other sources of information to make sure that we validate it, give the right answer.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. And I liked very particularly the way that you were integrating these things into Moodle, for instance.
Sure.
Moodle, which strikes me as a kind of it's kind of a static way of approaching students. And you turn it into a very dynamic environment. How did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, look, Moodle is an open source project, right? So it's really just everybody can contribute. And there's like 200 million live versions of it. None of it is standardized. It's all over the place. Most people, I mean, I'm sorry to Moodle, but most people hate it, right? I mean,
There's some struggles, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's got 150 million users, so people are obviously finding it useful, but that's probably because there's nothing better. And so we didn't want to create a new Moodle, there already is, but we wanted to make it better. So what we've done is you can just plug into your Moodle. You're using Moodle at the university.
Yeah.
You've uploaded your coursework. That's where you've got your PDFs, the lecture videos, your PowerPoints. And then the students go up and they upload their documents. Now, you as a teacher, all you see in the Moodle platform is basically whether someone has uploaded their document or not. That's the analytics you get. Now, that's not good, essentially. And the student as well. The student doesn't get any feedback until the teacher has reviewed it, given a final grade, until it's too late to actually change what you know or how much you're going to learn. So what we've done is we've integrated all of these smart features, these assistants, our analytics platform, and our games into Moodle. So the student can upload anything, the teacher can upload anything. They can generate games from any part of the coursework and the material, play these interactive, immersive games. They can upload their essays, get initial feedback. You upload a rubric and syllabus. Our appraiser engine grades the student's submission, tells them what they got in each criterion, how they can improve. They can play a game to specifically improve those very specific skills and knowledge they need to make that paper even better. Then they can keep re-uploading, getting an appraised score. And when you finally receive it, well, it's a much better paper. We give you a predicted score for it, so your job is easier. You get to focus more on where your talents and skills actually matter, which is one-on-one engagement with the student. And then we also give you analytics, very deep analytics, of which particular themes and topics and knowledge point the user has covered. Again, we can represent it in our knowledge graph. And you'll get a depth of insight, which is hitherto unseen. We'll be able to tell you if your part of your course material is underperforming. Perhaps you need to add more materials to it because this section is, on average, much lower with all students. Or we'll get to tell you if one particular student might be struggling in a certain domain. You'll get alerts, notifications, telling you that perhaps, some of your attention is required there.
Wow. That's very fascinating because you're in a way, you're monitoring the students, but you're also monitoring the lecturers, the teachers.
Sure, yeah.
So what does this mean? I mean, still we have, if I look at my time table, we have these lectures where I'm, addressing a group of students, teaching them.
Yeah.
What does it mean to this, how will this way of teaching evolve? Because I guess this will also have consequences.
Have you seen the movie Moneyball?
No, I have not. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, it's a very good film.
Yeah, okay.
It's with Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill.
Right.
It's about
I should watch it.
Yeah, it's a really good film. It's about how these two guys essentially realize that you can use statistics to improve the game of baseball. And before you see in the beginning what baseball was like. It's a bunch of old men who really think they know what they're talking about because they've been watching the sport for a long time. And they're making decisions about which players to get. Oh, how does he look? Does he have that sort of baseball physique? These subjective things. And then these two guys come along and they say, I don't care about that. Let's just look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Let's look at the statistics. And that's how education is going to change as well. Right now, sorry to say this, but it's a bunch of old men sitting in rooms making very subjective decisions about how education would look like. Okay. And finally, we're bringing science and data into the field of education. And that's not to say we're replacing the human element or the teachers, but simply because we can bring science and analytics and data into the educational field, that means, again, that we replace all this, dubious and useless tasks that a teacher is involved with so that they can actually focus on that one-on-one engagement, which is the most important thing.
That's interesting as well. I'm looking at my team leader, Hans Buitendijk, who really should hear this and also understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But what is I'm asking myself the question. So you're using data, statistics, and then you're saying that this one-on-one education, teaching thing is very important. It doesn't match up completely. I mean, statistics data, and then this one-on-one individual way of how do you bring that together?
Well, simply, one of the main metrics that a university advertises itself with is the ratio between students and teachers. So this is, pretty well known that this is something that you would want to try to optimize if you want to get a better grade of education. If you look at the best universities in the world, Oxford, Cambridge, one of the, things that makes it truly world-class is its tutoring system, the tutorials, right? You will have one-on-one time or maybe two-on-one time with some of these experts. And that's super important in actually allowing your own personal thoughts to develop. But also just that human connection, the fact that you feel that your professor cares about you, that, that you're actually a person that matters. Now, how much time is spent by professors these days creating these coursework, which, they, could automatize. The material is already out there. They know what they want to teach. Like, why do they have to spend so much time creating these materials? Second of all, how much time do they think about, grading? We can do most of the grading. Of course, you'll probably have to approve the grade. But for most materials, we can do that. How much time do you spend, looking at analytics and trying to figure out what's wrong, what's right? We'll tell you instantly what's wrong or what's right. Now, so that means that using science and data, we can eliminate a lot of these repetitive, semi-useless tasks so that you can actually focus, on the important thing, which is that one-on-one time with your students.
I think it's very valuable that you free up time to do this one-on-one tutoring.
But it's probably why people became teachers, right?
Yeah.
They didn't become teachers so that they can sit in a basement and grade papers. They became teachers, to have that impact on the students.
Exactly.
Inspire them. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is how AI is helping us to improve.
But I think what's super interesting is not just what companies like Vergil is doing for academia, but what academia and you guys are helping us with at Vergil, because a lot of this data, this science, this needs to be validated in a scientific way. And so, perhaps you can, tell us a bit more about the research, we're going to be doing and what you've got in mind for the future as well.
Yes. I see what you mean. Well, we're finding things out, right? Yeah. So it's a very new thing. For sure, we know that our students will work with AI. They have to work with AI. They just have to do it in a very smart way. And basically, we've just taken a few first steps. The AI Shark Tank game is one of those first steps, in which we basically oblige them.
Should we tell the audience what the Shark Tank game is like?
Well, yeah, maybe you can talk about the concept. Yeah, because I mean you're the right person to explain it. Yeah.
Sure. So essentially, the Shark Tank game is one of the first projects we worked on together. It was the first research we had done, in which we just put a bunch of large language models and asked them to pretend to be investors or sharks, right? In the UK, they call it Dragon's Den. And the students at your university were, as a final project, I think, were asked to identify a business problem, a real-world business problem, and then create a business plan for it on how to solve it, right? And this was their final project.
They have to pitch it.
Then they had to pitch it in the Shark Tank. So they had to go into the Shark Tank and, negotiate and debate with all the different sharks and then argue about evaluation. And then they would get questions about, well, what's your go-to-market strategy, right? And this, again, it's not delegative. They're interacting, they're sort of struggling, they're striving to show their knowledge.
Exactly.
And it's fun as well. It's fun.
Yes, and it's very fun. I mean, gamification, right? You mentioned it. And what I think is very important is that they started to communicate with AI, and AI was asking them questions, but also when AI was asking them questions and a question that they did not really comprehend or grasp, they could also ask AI, "What do you mean?
Yeah.
What is this?"
Sure.
Now?
Yeah.
And then it generated this. It created this sort of dynamics that was really leading them upward.
Yeah.
And to real performance augmentation. And that's so. This is one of the first steps that we've taken in this new type of education.
Yeah.
But I think this is the path that that we have to that we have to choose, that we have to walk.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna lead us. It's gonna revolutionize
Absolutely.
education. And I think you will also come up with. I mean, AI Shark Tank game is a great thing, and we will still be using it. But I think that you will also come up with new stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, now we can, as I said, like we made the Shark Tank game, like I said, down and we made it, right?
Yeah.
But now we can generate games automatically. So right now we were running some tests, and for example, if this individual wanted to learn about the French Revolution, right? Then we generate, like I just told the system, teach me about the French Revolution. And it generated a game where there were representatives from the États Généraux, and then you were put in there as a mediator to mediate the conflict between the king, the aristocrats, the third estate, and on the fly it generates these games. So, now we're getting to a point where really it's, whatever you want it to be.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's really amazing. Thank you very much, Botond, for this chat. And
thanks a lot.
I'm looking very much forward to collaborating with you and exploring what
Absolutely.
AI has to offer us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.